Hi guys, welcome to a very special episode of the Top Tier Tiers podcast. I'm Alfred Yang. With me, as always, is my intrepid co-host Tom.
Hello.
Yes, and today we also have a super special, awesome guest. Strictly Broken TCG's own sponsored player. I actually didn't ask if I could use his name, but I assume he's going to be fine with it. Ryan Wibley, welcome to the cast.
Hello. Thanks for having
So
me.
Ryan is a very accomplished player, both pre and post pandemic. He's put up some very good results very recently. I believe he actually won the Houston Trios that our last podcast was about. So congratulations to him and Strictly Broken. And well, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
I mean, you did it pretty well. I've been playing Weiss for 9 years now, pushing 10, I think.
Boomer.
Yeah,
Very
I've been,
rude.
like, yeah, a very, very long time, primarily playing Japanese, but I decided to take English a bit more seriously, like right before pandemic. Topped like top two trios events, topped the single event, made it to worlds, top three worlds back in 2020, right before the pandemic. Yeah,
Yeah, he did pretty good with a number of decks. He's known for being a very flexible player, and I think he's got, I think he brings a lot to any discussion he's part of, which is part of why we've asked him to come on here. But that aside, the concept of this episode is actually a little bit different. And instead of doing a straight up us talking to people episode or an interview or anything, what we've done actually is we've decided to show how me and Tom go about evaluating decks that we've never seen before when we're presented with a deck that might look good. I thought it would be an interesting exercise to see how well our brains work, and it might give some people some ideas of how to start looking at decks, how to start looking at them competitively, and I think really importantly, getting into less comfortable situations like reading Japanese cards and looking at decks that you have no interest whatsoever in. So without further ado, and I don't know what's being shown on the screen right now. I
Oh,
presume
I'm
it's the
sorry.
clock that's being presented. We have asked Ryan, who is a bit more he's a bit more clued into the current Japanese scene, to provide us with an example of one of the frontrunner decks in the Japanese meta. You might remember us talking in the last few episodes about how good the deck D-side Trauma Ray is, but truth be told, neither I nor Tom have actually looked into this deck in a meaningful sense. Like, we don't know what the level 1 is. We don't know what the level 3 finisher is. We don't even know what the climax lineup typically is. If you had asked us before today, I would have had to go and look on a blog resource or Twitter to find a list. So we thought we'd exploit that ignorance there to try and bring some content that I don't think would really has been done anywhere before. We're going to look into a list, a relatively stock list. Hell, look, I don't know if this is a stock list or if it's his personal spicy list or what sort of list it is. Hell, he could be stringing us on. Maybe the meta deck is actually like 8 choice or 8 door or something, and he's just
Mm.
provided us with this list to try and get us. But if that's the case, we don't put this podcast up and we send glittergrams to Ryan.
Nah, we'd put it up anyways, but you know.
As you do. So he's given us this list. Is this just a stock list, or is this a list you've
so
worked on? Or
I guess I'll preface it by saying that this is my personal list, but I will also say that despite D-side being uni- un- unanimously considered the best deck in Japanese Weiss at this moment, it's not actually a solve deck beyond the general shell. So like a lot of the ratios and tech choices are completely different between every single list, and only like the standard four ofs or climax spread and yeah, that's actually basically just it. Just like the four ofs and the climax spread are the only thing that's shared between every single D-side list. So even though like this is my take on the list, it's not the exact meta list that everybody's playing because everybody is playing a different version or a different variant, but they're all doing the same general thing.
right. So the first thing we'll do is we'll talk briefly about the fact that this is a Japanese list. Now, neither I nor Tom natively read Japanese, and Ryan has studied some Japanese. In fact, I think he does read Japanese, but
I
it
can.
also yes. But I have not, and Tom has not. So, despite that, we've both played Japanese wise for over 5 years, and in my case, much longer than that. How did we do that? The simple answer is basically we use translation sites. So in regards to that, um, the translation sites that one might use, which ones do you use, Tom?
I use Little Akiba, Heart of the Cards, and Google Translate. And
Google
Friends.
Translate is pretty decent, yeah. Um, I would advise against using Google Translate too much because sometimes Google Translate is very imprecise with specific sorts of effects, and you might end up getting the exact opposite effect of what is written on the card through Google Translate. So be careful about that. I personally am a very text-orientated learner. I know many people are visual learners, and therefore they might prefer the little Akiba sites or the Discord channels with card translations and the like. I like using the Heart of the Cards text translations because
Oh, and
I
YC Time.
yes, Wise Tea Time is great for unreleased sets because they aggregate all of these spoilers there. It's a really good site for a lot of different reasons. If you are someone like me who wants to look at the text of the card and be able to control F and search for specific effects like anti-change effects or hexproof effects or memory kicking or stock kicking, etc., then I would recommend sites such as Heart of the Cards, who have text files of all of the translations. Now, none of these sites are infallible, and in fact, if you, especially if you have like an Asian language background, you might be able to learn to pattern recognize. That's something I used to do as well, because for a while I did like I did the card of the day on was it global or foreign? I don't even remember. For a while, I actually did the card of the day with pure pattern recognition, basically. But I wouldn't advise that unless you already have a bit of an understanding of the language. So now that we have that checked off, let's get started at looking at the list, shall we? So, Tom, when you look at a list like this, I'm gonna pretend that you haven't cheated, that this is the first time you've seen any of these cards.
Yeah.
What is the first thing you look at when you see a deck like this?
Climaxes and climax combos, probably.
hmm
So
So I agree. I think that looking at the climax spread is the first thing we do these days. What do you see from this one?
I see 4 of this level 3 that I see. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 cards that have the climax combo like thing.
Even before that, I'm talking even on an even more basic basis. What's the climax spread and why is that important?
Oh, it's 8 pants or 8
Yes,
blue gate or arch or whatever. Yeah.
yes. So eight blue
Um,
gates.
what does that mean to
So
me? I mean,
mm,
lots of climax retrieval. I'm assuming there's going to be tools to pay out climaxes as well as probably some sort of climax swapper right off the bat. Some way to get the climaxes that you would salvage out of your hand is probably going to be in this list, I would imagine. Um,
yes, I definitely agree with that, and not just that actually. I would actually be looking at the deck and making sure it has those tools, like it has ways to get rid of climaxes that are in your hand. Because when you trigger and plus, you're not just going to say, "Oh no, I don't really want that plus." You're going to take the card, but you're going to want to be able to convert it to something if you can, which is something that's super important when you see an eight blue gate or 8 bar deck, I think, and to some extent 8 choice, but we can talk about that later.
uh,
The other
are
thing is,
we close? Are we on the dot, Ryan? How
Yeah,
close are we?
yeah.
All right,
No,
all right.
you guys are like 100% on the dot, actually.
sick. We're
How
we're,
much
we're
do
good
you
at the
actually?
same
How
page.
much do you value cards like that in general? And then, do you think how much more importance do you place on those cards if you're playing 8 pants or something?
Like CX removal cards to
Yeah,
like be able to
yeah.
oh in any deck that plays 8 plussing triggers where the plus is climaxes, I always want at least like 2 ways to proactively ditch a climax from my hand, and then maybe more if they're not proactive. Because it's exactly what Alf said. Like when you trigger it, you're not gonna not take the plus. Like plussing in Weiss is really good. Triggering climaxes is really good. So you want to be using it, but you can't always just slam a climax and say this is my plus. Like you need to be able to convert it into like better tangible cards sometimes. So it's highly valuable.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at this, there are one of three things I'd like out of like a climax discarding suite. The first one is I look for a dedicated support. So people, or rather, Bushiroad has been printing specific supports to complement specific decks. Examples would include the restricted card on the SAO 10th anniversary, which basically converts all of your pants triggers into better selectivity, or the Sakura Brainstorm in Fate, that's in English as well, where every bar you trigger can be converted to a different card. If the deck has one of those, then I no longer am concerned about overloading on climaxes in my hand, and I'm happy with that by itself. Obviously, more is better, but that by itself would already tell me it's okay to play this sort of deck, as long as those supports are good enough to play. The second thing that would give me a lot of, I guess, reassurance is a really good proactive come into play climax ditch effect. So something like the Toka from the Data Live trial deck would be a really good example of a card that lets you filter your hand very easily when you play it. Or just the card Azusa, or the Ilya from Fate, the Azusa from Idolmaster Namco Pro, that just comes into play, ditches a card, and then gets you another desirable effect on top of that. Or a very relevant card coming up very soon, the Hestia from Danmachi, which is just come and play mill free. If you find an event there, you get to also discard a card. Something like that would also be a super reassuring, reliable way to get rid of cards from your hand to make sure that you are stuck with Climax in your hand only when you want to be stuck with them. The third thing I think is kind of okay is it's a bit different though. They've been printing a lot of climax combos level 1 that take you over your hand limit. Examples would include the Miyu in the Prisma Ilia set, or the upcoming Itsuki in Quintessential Quintuplets, where your hand is just going to be like 9 cards. If you have something like that, then I'm no longer concerned about having too many climaxes in my first run through the deck. So, in addition to the basic drop searches, drop salvages, and stuff, those would be some specific cards I'd be looking out for, especially if the deck is something like 8 blue gate or blue pants, or 8 bar. Does any of that is any of that a disagreeable point for either of you?
No.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah. So now that I've wasted all of our time just talking about the climaxes so far, another thing that I think we do need to look at this point, it's been years that we've had 8 standbys to play with. I think at this point, evaluation for a deck when it is 8 standby versus evaluation of a deck when it is say 8 door versus evaluation of a deck if it's 8 bar. I think these three are all very different. I think you need to be looking for different things. Do either of you have anything to add in that regard?
Mm, Do you really think door and bar are very different?
I don't think very different is the right term, but I certainly think that there are things I'd want in an 8 bar deck
Oh,
that I
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
necessarily care for in an 8 door deck.
yeah, yeah. No,
Like,
I agree. I agree. Standby decks are like see, they're not a different game, but sometimes the standby decks feel like they're a different game from like the way you would build a 1K one deck and want to play a 1K one deck.
goals are different, right?
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
Say
yeah.
again?
So you want to you're still trying to win the game, obviously, but the goals are different in how you win the game. Um, and while the lines do blur sometimes, there are some very good aggressive standby decks. There's going to be one releasing in English very soon, actually. I think we can leave it there and say that typically decks that have the 1k1 soul profiles with plussing triggers do want to play climaxes to push the opponents for some amount of damage to some degree. All right, now I've derailed enough. Tom, you were talking about climax combos earlier. Do you want to continue that train of thought?
Sure. Usually, let's see. The game is about climax combos. You usually run 8. People usually run 4-4. And yeah, I mean, looking at any deck, I usually look at climax combos first. And when I'm building decks, I also look to see what climax combos I want to run. So I would imagine D-side is no different. I would imagine that it has some pretty notable cards there.
So everyone I've asked they give one of two answers when you ask what do you look at first when it comes to the deck's lineup, and that's usually the level 3 combo and then the level 1 combo if those are options. Which one do you think we should start with?
I think level 3 combos are usually more important. Level 1 combos are typically just
They just plus you, right?
I think it's very rare. Well, it's not that very rare, but it's a little more rare that the level 1 combo is more distinctive than the level 3 combo. So if we're talking
I
about
agree.
looking at a deck that we've never seen before and then trying to figure out what it's trying to do, I would think the level 3 combo, or like maybe
Just the level 3 lineup.
what the deck is trying to do at level 3 is probably our best bet.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's look at this list we have on screen. So there are 4 level 3 cards, and in addition to that, we also have a level 2 that has a climax combo. You can see because like there's a little red climax combo icon that they've added as of a couple years ago, which is really nice. Which I would say are the cards we want to look at first. And keep in mind, when we say look at first, we're going to keep level 3 in mind for the rest of the game. Sometimes these days you print level 0s that are really good at level 3. Examples might include level 0s that have a come into play stock swap effect, or a come into play blink effect, or even level 0s that come into play, then sack themselves for cost to look at the top 4 for something. Those all exist and should also be considered in the game plan. But right now, let's look at the level 3s. The first one we've got here is yellow. Now, I actually noticed there's no other yellow cards in the entire list. So
That's
this is
true.
the only yellow thing. It is also a early play. So this is probably just an early play, but okay, so when I said I didn't know anything about D-side, I lied a little. I remember seeing this card in the previous season, and it was so cool. Like, it was so cool that I actually kept this one in my mind as one of the cards that would, like, make D-side a standout deck if it was good.
What does it
And,
do? What does it do? What does it do?
so
Is this
you can go to heart of the card. No, Ryan, you take it away. Go for it.
Alright, my cue. Alright, so she is an early play, but she has a weird condition. She has a 5 or less deck early play condition, which you don't see anymore.
Yeah, vintage.
Her other effect is if she's in the front row, she's a global 1500 to everything. So she's usually an 11k base, and then makes everything else bigger. But then the effect that actually matters the most is when you play her from hand. If you have 5 or less deck, you free fresh search one.
What?
Yes.
Insane,
What?
right? Yeah, when I read it, I was like, wow.
I should also clarify. It searches anything because traits actually kind of matter and come up in this deck specifically. So it searches any character.
So I
I'm gonna
see it
look.
searching for
It's
traits of
what's the
knocker
first
up
trait? Deicide?
and
Oh,
No, the
no,
first trait is knocker upper,
what
and
and
the
like
other
what
one's
is
an
that?
island of some sort. That's an island?
What is
knocker
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 upper?
upper?
knocker upper. The lore
Knocker upper.
knocker uppers or knocker upper was like a term from like industrial era Britain, where it was like the job of a factory worker who would wake up the people in the lodging houses to start their shifts. So like
So
it,
is this the
Steam.
concept of D-side, where
yeah,
you have
Is
like
it
an
steampunk
idle
thing
band?
or what?
the general lore of D-side is that like they're monsters go into people's dreams and put them into a coma and kill them that way. And knocker uppers are people that can go into the dreams to get rid of the monsters and wake them up.
Dang.
Yeah.
So
All
she's got
right.
like a this is like a pile bunker slash microphone.
Yeah, she's an idol, so she's got a microphone, but it's also a gun.
I always knew that this was it's an idol set. Of course, it's an idol set. Of course it is. How else would it be
Come
open?
on, look at
Anyway,
her. Look at her name.
So
She's the best idol.
so it
refresh
is
global
Strike-Your
$15.
Idol.
Yeah,
So
so
this is
it is an early play free fresh that's cantrips selectively that is also a global 15.
There's
so
something wrong here.
what this tells me immediately is that this deck has probably got great deck control and deck speed, for lack of a better term. This tells me that you can probably motor through your deck if you want to. And it also tells me that you can have a slightly more intense, like selection intensive level 3 if your mid-game play also gets you precisely what you need going forward.
I also
Which,
think
that go on.
this deck could probably it probably doesn't care that much if it hits level 2 before it refreshes for the first time.
Yes.
Mm,
Which
yeah.
is like
I mean,
it is a strength that
playing
they
from
are
behind
giving more and more decks recently, actually, I think.
playing from behind is never really a good thing, but being okay playing from behind is fine. The thing about free freshers is that you evaluate them not just as whatever it is natively, but also as an effective heal, because you are not taking refresh damage. So while this card has the come and play ability to search a card, it also has a come and play heal, and it's also really big on field and makes everything else big on field. I mean, my opinion of this card is the same as my opinion on when it was first spoiled, that this card is pretty sick. But it tells me that you can expect to be really fat going forward. That being said, that's actually not a level 3 card. That's a level 2 card. That can also be played at level 3. Let's get on to what seems to be the level 3 headliner, the other 4 of. This
It's
Kirito
Kirito.
ass looking card. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Kirito. Woo!
So look, I am normally like the first person to lambast people for being incredibly basic and making analogies of main character. Is this the main character? I assume it's the main character of
Is this
main character
experience?
equals main characters equal Kirito. Yes, no, that's recollection.
Yeah, it's memory.
Oh, it's a memory
Um,
deck? Wow.
It is a
yes.
memory deck.
So this is actually just Kirito with big sword, big
Yeah,
red sword,
yeah.
and that's fine. Okay, so um, what does this card do? It has a lot of text on it.
It does have a lot of text. Okay,
It's like a
so
Vanguard card.
the first effect is recollection if you have 2 of the level 0 Aki specifically in your memory, which is if you go out of that, it's the 4 of with like the yellowish background
This one.
beside the green card, yeah.
I
So if you
guessed
have two
right.
Yeah.
if you have 2 of that specifically in your memory, he has a constant plus 2500 power and on reverse pay 1 ditch 1 burn 1. Just static
Hmm.
11/5 pay 1 ditch 1 burn 1 on
Hmm,
reverse.
interesting. Okay.
Second effect is when he comes into play from hand or from memory, you can heal 1.
I see.
From memory. That's a little worrying what you just said there.
Hell yeah. And then the actual climax combo is really simple. It's just on attack, pay 1, ditch 1. If you have 3 or more memory, you can burn 4.
Wow. And I guess that's how he's 9K
What is this
printed. All right.
card's name? High Schooler of the Dream. No, I don't.
Yumeru
Of course it.
Kokose Rando.
Of course
High
there's High
school
School of the
dreamer,
Dream.
So
high school dreamer, dreamer high schooler, however you want to
I
translate it.
have a bad feeling that this girl in memory like dies in the prologue.
Do you want the spoilers?
Really, I don't care about the plot. Okay, so
I
we
thought you were gonna
can't
say something
evaluate this card.
different.
We can't evaluate this card just in a vacuum, right? We also have to look at the card that it relies on, and then we probably also have to come back to this card later to see how likely it is that we multi-field this. But right on its face, like just to begin with, this is a level 3 heal. It is probably going to be 11/5, and it is probably going to have 2 abilities. One is pay 1 ditch to burn 1 on reverse, and then the other is pay 1 ditch on attack with climax combo burn 4 if you have some amount of memory. What do you think of that, Tom?
Uh, seems pretty good. Honestly, 11.5
I think,
is quite over
yeah,
spec actually for a card like this, especially given that it also heals. Uh, I feel like, yeah, I don't know. 11.5 healing finisher that can burn on the opponent's turn and also has a pretty, like, and all these stock costs are pretty efficient, so it seems like you'll almost always have resources to do whatever.
I think so
I
too.
I don't actually see any immediate, like,
I don't think it's broken at this point in time,
yeah, it just seems
but
like
I
a good
think
card.
if you're able to triple this or like double this and then do that over multiple turns easily, especially if you can do it like early,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
if this can be played out early in any way, I am very interested.
Dude, dude,
But
playing from memory part, dude,
yeah,
I got a bad. When Ryan said that, I was like, okay,
that's
all
really worrying.
right.
It feels like either it loops itself, so it's actually like
Mm.
a 2-time heal, or it comes out for an extremely cheap price, potentially even with the same climax, which is like mildly upsetting, but okay. So burn 1, burn 4. Like, not the greatest in the world, but at the same time, it's also an 11.5. It also heals. It also seems like it has a bunch of other support because it refers to both coming from memory and a very specific level, presumably level 0 card. So there's definitely more to this. There's definitely more than just what meets the eye, and it's already an above average card by my reckoning.
Uh,
Not to mention, like, both the burns are like they're optional. You don't have to do them. Sometimes you don't want to do them. There's a lot of modulation going on with this card. That
we'll
seems pretty good.
we'll probably have to look at the level 0 after we look at the climax combos, I guess. So
Yeah, we can look at level 0 now.
okay, I'm
So
down.
I know we can't, but it's actually a good segue into the next climax combo. But I don't think we can actually do that because this seems to be there's a lot going on here. So the level 0 girl who I presume oh no.
She looks like a childhood friend.
She
Oh
is the
no,
childhood friend, yeah.
and the name of
Okay,
the
all right.
card is
I already know exactly what I needed to know,
If,
dude. She
if,
dies. She
yeah, if
dies.
you can,
the name of the
if
card is Tomorrow's Promise.
Tomorrow's
Oh,
Promise Audrey, yeah,
that is the red flag right
oh
there.
my god, all these flags being triggered.
yeah.
Okay, so what this card is, it is I can read this one actually. All of your other knocker up, and I don't know the name of the island, but that island characters gain 500 power. So this is that island because she's apparently not a knocker upper or whatever,
No, she is not
and
a knocker upper.
Wow, another
she
bad
is
sign.
you can pay 1 and send this standing card from your field to memory. If you do, choose one of your. Okay, so that's the level 3 Kirito, or the.
So if you actually click out really quick,
Yeah,
I'll make it
Yeah.
simple. You see all the rondos with the climax combo?
yeah.
She salvages any of them.
Wait,
Any
what?
of.
Any of
So
these?
the level
The level
3, the
3, the
level
level 2, and the
2,
level 1?
and level 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, are you serious?
So she's
Yes.
like she's a
Wow.
bond, but well, she's not a bond because she doesn't like a ditch bond, kinda. No, she's not.
She's like an
Uh,
She is
event.
selectivity.
She's like an
so
She is
event.
selectivity. Yeah,
uh,
she's an event. She's the
ju-
prologue event.
just so it's clear, I mentioned that there's like a trait issue, and like it's kind of relevant. So yeah, she's not knocker upper, but basically everything you do in this deck checks for or looks specifically at knocker upper. So her being off trait actually comes up sometimes as being like a relevant issue, which like helps make this card a little bit more fair than I think it sounds.
Well, it's okay because you yeet her to memory as soon as you can, right?
Yeah, ideally you would want to, but
Well, as a
like
support, you need that
your
power, I
your
guess.
your combo can't grab your level 1 combo doesn't grab her. Uh, so like your only ways to get her are like brainstorm, your free fresh,
Yeah.
or like or your utility in the deck.
Mm.
I assume it's a
Essentially.
salvage brainstorm in this deck.
It is a salvage brainstorm,
Yeah.
yeah.
As soon as you mentioned trait problems, I would have assumed the deck has run the Salvage Brainstorm.
Plus,
Those are not
if you can
usually trait restricted.
if you can motor through the deck fast enough that a 5 or less card in deck free fresh isn't a problem, you probably want a Salvage Brainstorm as well. That's statistically just going to get you
Yep.
more of what you want.
Yep.
Okay,
Though
let's
I
go
mean,
back to
on-demand salvage in general is really good with free fresh profiles, I think.
Mhm.
So that's another thing we could be on the lookout for.
Let's go back to the randos, or the black-haired guy.
The Kirito.
His hair is like purple in this shot though.
It's the lighting.
All right. So the 2/1 rando. When it comes to play, you may choose a level 3 rando in your waiting room. Send him to memory.
Wow. And
Okay.
how does he come out of memory? I wonder what's gonna happen here.
At the beginning
Ryan?
of your attack phase, if you have that relevant climax in climax zone, if this card is in the front row and you have another if you have another knocker upper, you may choose a level 3 rando in your memory. Tap this card. If you do, put that rando to this card slot, and during the encore step, when it starts, what happens to that character?
So it combos with the same pants that the level 3 combos with. You tap this if it's in the front row, and you swap this card and the level 3 in your memory, and then at the end of your turn they swap back. So this one will
Okay.
early play the 3/2 combo from memory for free, and then it will swap back to the 2/1 at the end of your turn.
Okay, that's all right then. Because if it, all right, so at least it's not staying on the field to be like a 13K or whatever.
It
On
stays there in
opponent's
memory,
turn.
right? The level 3?
The
Yes.
level
Okay,
3
okay.
does stay in memory, so this is just quote unquote free memory, I guess. Okay, sure. You get to do your combo really early if you want. You also get to probably just wipe out your opponent's level 2 field, because again, this card is usually pretty massive. This is an extra card in memory, and if you want to, you can start doing your full combo at level 2, I
Dude,
guess.
you get to heal for free for 1 stock every turn you have the climax. It's kind of
Yes.
cool.
That's pretty good. I anticipate that the play pattern is going to be maybe you do one of these. I don't know if you want to spam multiple of these. I think that you want to be able to heal early, and you also want to be able to just do a big killing turn if it comes to that. So I don't think you'd be playing too many of these immediately once you hit level 2. That's just my impression right now, though.
And seems really good for this.
Yes. If there's a climax swap, then this is actually really consistent. That's actually a bit scary.
Okay.
This is a 3 of. So this is a 3 of, which tells me that the builder, or at least Ryan, maybe wants to either play 2 at some point, or he never wants to search this and wants to be able to just have it really easily if necessary.
I mean, selectivity is not
Or
an issue,
both.
right?
No.
Probably not.
You actually run 7 instead of 3 here.
What?
Technically,
Oh,
because of the bonder, yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah,
Wait.
pretty good.
Okay. Well, I wonder what the play pattern is. You play this, and then they die, and then you get them with this, and then you do this again. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like you're gonna.
And they're
this
gonna
is an
be
almost-
what, 12-5, 14 with the free fresh,
Yep.
and it feels bad to counter these because they're gonna
They always swap back. Yep.
It's at the beginning of the encore step they swap back.
Yep.
Wow.
That's
Wait, that's crazy. Wait, that's crazy. What the fuck? What? Are you
This is
serious?
like,
Yep.
this is your favorite thing about Quince,
Dude.
except better.
Dude, what?
Yep.
Wait, you can't counter these. It feels so bad. What the hell?
You cannot counter. Countering them is just giving yourself.
Can't you like stop a counter or whatever them?
Yeah,
I guess you could. Memory kick, yeah.
You can technically hard remove him on the swing, like anti-change or like memory kick or whatever.
Wow,
but like
memory kick them? Memory kick them? LOL. Sorry.
Even if you do that though, like it's weird to explain, but even if you do that, that means you just put the level 3 back in the deck circulation instead of having it like
Mhm.
quote unquote get
Back in
stuck
memory.
in your memory. So like
Yeah.
even if you do that, it's not even a winning play most of the time.
Bruh.
Well, you could memory kick it, and then I mean, they just play the 2-1 then, don't they? God damn it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Is the only
yeah.
way to deal with this clock kick then? Clock swap kick? Because like
On
if you stock kick it,
no,
it'll just get paid out, right? And then you get sent it to memory again the next turn, and then
they swap back at like at the end of your turn, right? So like the
But if
only way to
if
would
the
be
level
like
3's up there, it doesn't bring the level 2 back, does it?
no, it does not. So like
Okay, so you need to swap.
yeah,
Yeah.
it works like the level down events. You have to swap. So if you hard remove the 3-2 on a swing, the 2-1 will get stuck in memory.
oh,
But I mean, that's still memory. That's not the worst thing in the world.
I don't know. It
Uh,
doesn't. It seems pretty hard to.
it seems annoying. Like, Weiss games do not go long enough for that additional memory to be like a major benefit. But at the same time, like, this just seems really consistent and really
I
annoying
mean,
early.
realistically, I feel like even if you remove it, they'll be level 3 at some point. So
But some of the level 3s will be stuck in memory. So they're gonna need to find these level 2s again. That doesn't matter though. They just play them again because it's the same damn climax.
bro.
Ugh,
All
that's so
right.
annoying.
This is like
Ugh.
one of the reasons I actually play through of it. So like the 2-1
Oh,
specifically is actually like the biggest contention for the ratio for a lot of people play, and it fluctuates between 1 and 3, always. No list will like have the same number, which
I feel like
is
3 is good if you want to be playing this a lot.
there. We haven't talked about some of the other cards, but like there are ways to play D side that aren't just like you play 2 of this and you push your opponent by early playing your finisher at level 2. And when you want to play the deck that way, then like that's when you start to cut down the 2-1 and you play like some other cards like tap counter, for example, or like memory kick counter or whatever, depending on what your meta is.
Mm,
But yeah, I think this 2-1 is fucking busted, and being able to play your healing finisher at level 2 is like disgustingly broken. So
so
I
annoying.
play 3 because I want to
Seems
do it
so
all the time.
annoying.
bro.
Holy shit.
All
Okay.
right.
So now
Next
we've
level
established
one
that that's
Kirito.
the game plan. Um, actually, no, before we do that, how about we quickly cover level 3s and then we can move down to level
Sure.
1? Because we've got 2
There's
more level 3s
two
to
one
talk about.
ofs. Yeah, two one
Okay,
ofs.
let's talk about the blue-haired girl. She is a knocker-upper. Her name is Eru.
Yeah.
If you have 4 or more knocker-uppers or whatever thing, or what is
Oh,
that
it's an
last
assist.
one?
Mystery. It
Oh, good God.
yeah.
This is a 2K support that heals.
Yeah, it's just an early play
Ah.
2K support healer.
Okay,
Wow.
so when you don't have enough power, sometimes you just need a little bit
Y-
more.
yeah. It's literally
Seems
just
like a
it's not there as like an early play healer. It's literally just there for like certain matchups where like
power if you need it,
12,
yeah.
5, or 14 isn't big enough, and you need that extra kick to get over.
Seems like a bit of a luxury, but also seems really powerful in certain matchups. So you either play this or you completely ignore it for the whole game, huh?
Yeah,
Okay, sure. And the other level 3 is a
Stock
Dox.
swap.
yeah. She's just a stock swap. The climax combo's fake. We don't play the climax.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Makes sense.
We
All
won't
right.
think about that.
Keep
That's fine.
keep
Stock swap
keep
is
people honest.
really punishing against certain decks, auto win against certain decks. That's fine. Okay, let's move down to level 1. Let's talk about the climax.
Specifically, one sec. Specifically, it's like pretty good. It synergizes with what this deck wants to do, which is what swing for 3 a lot, and then also burn for 4 sometimes. So even though it's a
Yeah,
standard
seems about
tool, it works well with this deck. I would note.
you will probably be swinging for 3 a lot in this deck. That seems to be what is going to happen. I know that sounds weird because like we've talked about burn 1, we talked about burn 4, but like you're playing climaxes and attacking with 2 soul beaters a lot in this deck, from what I can tell. So 3 seems to be the number that we need to be thinking about. Okay. Let's go to level 1. There is a 3 of 1/1, but we'll get to that one in a little bit. Let's talk about the rando first then. So this is a come and play at 6k, and when it attacks, if you have another knocker upper, then you can reveal the top card of your deck, and then you take a level X or lower knock up a character from your waiting room that is that card's level or lower. Is that right? And it gets
Yeah,
it gets
yeah.
1k. Why did it get 1k?
On attack top check, and then you salvage a knocker upper whose level is equal or lower to the character that you flip on top, or the
Why
card you
is it
flip.
also this is just an 8k attacker?
Yeah.
It's a TD climax combo. Um, um, this is good. Like this
It's a
pushes
TD
past the
card?
power threshold that
Oh.
you want it to be. It's a TD card, yeah. Remember when TD cards were freaking Shimikazes at 5k? This is good. It attacks as 8k, so it contests standby decks. It contests the pseudo wall decks as well. So, but you are pretty much completely giving up on the defense, right?
Yes. And your selection also isn't actually the best with a combo like this.
I'm
For what it's
assuming you run. I mean, okay, so obviously there's this card, which is a lot of the selection actually. But like, I'm assuming there are some other level 0 cards that do cool stuff, like proactively. Maybe.
kinda.
Is this deck completely broken? Does it have like a really
we
good
can
level 0 that it'll always play every turn?
We'll get to the level 0. We'll
we
get
can
to the
get
level
there.
0.
Yeah.
But right
So
now, yeah, go on,
I, I
right?
I think it's actually worth noting that like as like a set combo, I actually think like this combo isn't actually particularly good, and the set has like a better raw level 1 combo to play. But the reason we play this one specifically is because we want the 8 pants
That's right.
trigger lineup.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure out why he
Also,
wants.
decent
Okay.
synergy with
So
this.
it also works with the level 0, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
bit more.
So
of course.
you also get to play 8 copies of your level 1 combo, which is like not something to like write off. It's pretty
Like
powerful.
historically, that's actually usually pretty weak because you don't want to play like 8 copies of just one card. But the level 0 we're talking about
I mean, it gets
is 4
everything.
copies
Oh my god, it
of
gets
everything. Yeah,
everything.
It
it
gets
gets
everything,
everything,
so
and that's why it's good.
you don't give up anything for that benefit, so it ends up actually being like
Exactly.
really good.
It's insane if you're not giving anything up, because you're playing 4 of that card anyway. You wouldn't play like a 1/0 that said come into play, change into the level 1 combo. I don't think you would play that card. But you would play this level 0 that we talked about already.
Yeah,
Okay, so middling combo, but works well with the rest of the deck and is what we're working with. Let's move on to the other level 1s. I think we should talk about the 1/0 first. Now, while you guys were talking, I actually had a quick look at the level 1s, and you kind of have to talk about these two together.
yes, they are the same
Uh,
card
they
essentially.
are, yeah, they are the same card basically. So the 1/0 is also Eru. When it comes to play, if you're 2 or less cards in memory, you may choose one of the 1/1 in your waiting room and put it to memory. And then when your attack step begins, you can tap
Oh,
this card.
sorry.
Wait,
Talking about
no.
this one?
If you have a
The
No.
1/0.
climax,
Oh, this one.
So
no,
Sorry, sorry.
the 1/0 has the same effect as the 2/1, where at the start of your attack phase, if you tap
if you
her
have
and
a climax,
you memory swap them, but yeah, she checks for any climax. So as long as you have a climax in play, she will memory swap into the 1/1 that she puts into memory.
and the 1/1 is just not only is it big, but it's also an anti-level 2, right?
Yes, so it's a 7k with the anti-level 2 text. So if you tackle level 2 or higher, she gains 6k, and as long as you have 2 or more memory. And then she also has, if you have a climax in play, on reverse blind stock 1.
Which is
All
actually
right.
really insane because that means the 1/0 is now just straight up stock positive if you have a climax, right? Uh,
Yeah,
it's a costless change, right?
it is a costless
You you
change. Yeah,
you play the climax, you get a 7k attacker. If the 7k kills something, you blind stock something, right?
8k, 8k,
So
but yes.
8, yeah, 8k with climax, sorry. 8k and 14k versus level 2s, and then you get a stock, you get bonus stock out of the deal as well. All
Is
right, that
it reverse
seems,
anything? Get a stock?
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
it is
It's
reverse
just
anything.
as long as you have a climax in play.
Hmm.
Pretty good.
All right. Yeah.
I don't know if it's like 7 slots is a lot for a card like this, but at the same time, you just kill any standby deck that stands in your way, right? Like any level 2s that dare stand in the front row just get
So like
murdered?
the anti level 2 isn't actually it barely matters actually because Japanese
Okay,
isn't a
so
standby meta. So
yep,
like
so this just
the main
kills
reason
whatever.
is the main reason there is
The stock, right?
is for this blind stock and because she's a memory swapper, which is important.
Okay. Memory
Yeah.
swapper.
Yeah. The
This
set
does
has
not bode well.
the set has another really good card that interacts when cards move from memory to stage. So
We will get to that, I'm
yeah,
certain.
having one at level 1 ends up being really important for the deck. So she plays that role as
Okay.
well.
Sure, so we'll keep that in mind going forward. But this card is obviously a package that matters. Let's move on to the level zeros, shall we?
Yeah.
So where do we start? Do we start at that? We've already covered one of the four ofs, which is the girl who is presumably dies in the prologue. Then we have some other four ofs. So shall we start from the very bottom right, or
I'm
all
assuming.
right?
Well,
This
this
card is
this is. I assume this is a brainstorm. It just looks like a
so
brainstorm to me.
yeah, but the far bottom rights are because it has less text than the other one. I'm assuming it's an oversize of some sort. I am correct. It is an oversize of some. Oh my god, does that do what it?
Wait, why does
So
this has way too much text for an
This
oversized
is
dude?
this is if you have 5 or more hands, she's a 3K, and then on death, Chieri for level 1 or higher.
What?
Oh my
Sure.
god.
All right. All right. Yeah.
All
I
right,
mean,
there's
yeah.
that's some of the text speed we want.
Ugh.
Really powerful card. 3K is almost like an oversize. Like most cards which can't beat oversizes can't beat a 3K either, and that just is quote unquote deck speed. I don't think you actually have that many. Wait, how many targets is that? That's 8, 11, 14, 15, 16, 24. So you're not actually super likely. Oh, you're likely to hit. You're likely to hit, but it's not selectivity really. It's just mill.
Yeah. You don't use this effect in this deck to like set up pieces. You use it to for deck speed on your first deck
Yes,
primarily.
I figured as much. Which makes it a really desirable turn one play. Okay, that's fine. Really decent quote unquote oversize. Next card is you are correct, Tom. It is a brainstorm.
This card, this card is
When it comes to play, choose a you get to marker a card that is basically any trait from your waiting room, and then wait.
so yeah. This was the
Oh,
memory swap interaction. So yeah, on play you
when
choose
a
any character, you marker it, and then whenever you do a memory swap, not once per turn, you can send the marker to stock.
Wait, what?
Yes. So anytime you memory swap, the brainstorm is also a stock treasure.
I see.
but that's only once, isn't it?
It only once every time you play the brainstorm now. Yes.
Yeah. So you play the brainstormer, you get a marker. There better not be a way to recharge markers. That will piss me off.
Uh,
So
yeah. Spoilers, there isn't, but the deck still will try to loop the brainstorm a
I
lot.
mean, an extra stock from playing your brainstorm is
I
like
mean,
most decks
mem-
don't get that stock. It's just so. Oh god.
you also can get the brainstorm anytime you use the level 1 climax combo, right?
Yes. Yeah. She's
Uh,
not grabber.
okay. She's level 0 is the other important thing. Okay, so whenever a card moves from stage to memory specifically, so this isn't just the swap mechanic, but it's also the level 0 bonder, right?
No. Oh.
No?
Sorry. No. It's memory to stage, isn't it?
So
Sorry.
anytime
I might be.
this.
It's,
It might be actually. Yeah, you might be right. This is a double R. Let me have a look.
yeah, when a character on your stage goes into memory or
Wait,
swaps into memory with another character, so it only triggers on the two
Changing
changers.
places.
on the two
Okay.
changers. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Only when changing
Sure.
places. Not that it
Yes,
would be particularly good with the I don't know her name, childhood friend, but
Aki.
sure. I guess that's like okay, so this is the central mechanic of the set, I suppose. You're going into your dream mode and you get a big red sword. Okay, sure, why not?
So the thing that's really important about this card actually is that it's not once per turn. You can do it on the swap in, or you can do it on the swap out. And what this
Mm.
means is that you can use it to either just be a stock charge and like throw away like really shitty cards that you don't want anymore, or you can use it to set up cards for your next turn.
Oh my
So
god,
like
it's not mandatory.
it is
That's
not
so
mandatory and
dumb.
it's not once per turn. So like the general play pattern is your first two brainstorms, you actually want to marker the 3/2 rondo to get them
Yeah.
away. And then you play the arrow during your level 1 turn, and then on the swap back at the end of your turn, then you marker the rondos away. So that way they're immediately at the top of your stock for your next turn. So
You
even if
can
you
pay
refresh
them,
that deck,
yeah.
you will always have them available for you.
Yeah,
And then
that's
that is why you dedicate like 7 to 8 slots for that arrow specifically,
Mm.
actually.
the once per turn thing that Ryan's referring to is the action of a effect priming up to once a turn. Because if it primed up to once a turn, then you'd basically have to do it the first time or you miss out on the effect.
Which
Here,
is
that is not
not
the
the
case.
case. Yeah.
No, not the case here. So rather than being something you can just do over and over again, which is what I initially thought, it instead allows you to control the timing to your advantage, which is more powerful than it sounds actually.
Ah.
That's annoying. That's really annoying. Uh okay. Annoyance aside, let's talk about that the last card that is not a one of, which is this
Oh yeah.
Kaede looking girl over
Looks
here.
like a bond.
Her name is Rin, I'm pretty sure. Is that
Hina.
Rin? Hina. Okay. That's the same kanji, I think. No, it's not? No, that's the two. I don't care. Anyway, on your opponent's attack step, you can mill one. If you do, it runs somewhere where there is no character opposite. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a null runner.
And it also
Or
is
not opposite. It's just a standard null runner, sorry. So you mill and then you go to any open slot.
yeah, where there's nothing in that
Oh,
slot.
sorry, wait, no, it
Okay.
is Ren. I got her name wrong, my bad.
Oh,
You're right.
he's a
Hmm.
secondary after all. So this girl bonds to the level 1 Kirito, so she's probably um so this is definitely not the main love interest, right? The main love interest is either the idol girl or the blue-haired girl, right?
Yeah, but she's like the I've fallen for you character. It I don't know what that trope's called anymore. Like she fawns over the main character, but the main character like doesn't isn't really that interested. That trope.
This is after school time, huh? All right. So she's just a bond to your level 1 rando. Specifically requires you to kill off another character on your state.
Yeah,
Wait, does the
she
level
is she's a sack bonder, which doesn't
does the
see play a
0
lot.
the 3K, does that happen on it happens on stage to waiting room. Okay, sure.
Yes, yeah. So
So
yeah, it's a sack bonder, which means you can sack the oversized Chieri to like get the mill four effect off, and it also means that you can play your brain or you can brainstorm after you've memory swapped, and then use this to sack off the brainstorm to then play another one without having to quote unquote like neg and play over it.
yes,
So that way
Okay,
you
so
can
not
keep
bad.
looping like the marker stock charging.
that's really powerful.
Oh. Wait, what is it
Yeah,
bond
because
for?
The
it
level
bonds the
one
level
combo.
1 combo.
What?
Yeah,
Yep.
I see. Okay.
It isn't a climax stitch outlet like what we alluded to earlier because you have to sack a character, but it can convert itself into a climax stitch outlet pretty easily. Okay, so lots of interplay, lots of things you need to get comfortable with before you play this deck. Let's look at the one-offs at level 0, which we should mention you probably have a lot of access to as long as you resolve your level 1 combo. You can get any of these pretty easily as long as they've been milled. So let's talk about the
The Mado.
doesn't really matter which one we start with. The green maid, okay. Based purely on aesthetics, this is probably best girl. It is the
Alf does not
climax.
have good taste, everybody. I would just like to get that out of the way first.
My taste is impeccable, thank you very much. So this is a come and play climax swap. Pay 1, ditch climax to get any climax you want, and then when it attacks, if you have 5 more cards in hand, give one of your characters 1k. So this is just a climax swap. It has some token other text, which might be useful if you're happy sacking a lane or have a direct, but you probably mostly want it for the climax swap effect, which is fine. She's also presumably best girl. What do we have next?
What is this
Um,
bias? The best girl is the idol,
mm,
by the way.
yeah,
I
okay.
agree.
We know
I
you.
would actually probably
Yeah,
agree.
I know
Or her.
you
It's
both
either
are both.
her. It's either her or her.
I don't. You're both idol simps. You can't trust anything either of you ever say. So this next card, the one with two girls on it, is a come into play, ditch a climax. If you do, you can salvage a knocker upper. So very standard, uninteresting PR profile. But if in a deck like 8 bar or 8 pants, this is a bit of extra selectivity. It's also a card you can just kind of take from any random selectivity you get, like the 1/0 rando or whatever, and then you can use that as sort of delayed selectivity for where you salvage a level 0, but in reality you're salvaging a salvager that can get whatever you want afterwards. Capiche? Capiche.
Yeah. So one thing to note actually about this that's maybe relevant. This card's a Blu-ray PR.
What?
So,
Okay.
yeah, this
Sure.
card.
All right.
This,
All right.
this,
I see the PR. Yeah.
Wait,
so
this
like
is
this card's like 4K yen for some reason
Nice.
at XZ. So the most lists don't actually play it. They end up actually playing a green one that's also a Ditch DX salvage, but her other line of text, uh, which fucking sucks, is anti memory actually. Both players, if they have 5 or more memory,
Uh.
they cut down to 4. So
is
like
that mandatory?
yes, it is mandatory for both players. So you're by not paying the Blu-ray PR tax, you are playing a card that once you hit level 2 is an actively detrimental card to your game plan most of the time. Unless you
Well,
use it to like pull out the 3/2s to play them again next, or like to hard play them or
I was
whatever.
about to say that's something you can do, and on like your finishing turn, you could possibly do that, and then
Yeah,
I mean, you could stock swap your opponent to now have them have a slightly less compressed deck, and I don't know, that sounds more cute than good. So I'm probably in agreement with you that this is probably the better card. It also has the objective best girl on. I assume this is the same girl as the other one, right?
yeah,
Harry.
yeah.
Oh.
I
It's
don't
also
know
not a
her.
useless color, which is
Uh,
randomly
I
useful.
I think that's probably overstated when like 90%, literally 90% of your deck is blue. I don't think that's going to matter. And
And the last card, last but not least, but maybe it is the least.
um,
I don't know.
oh, so I didn't know this set had an anime, but I guess it does. Okay, cool, I guess. So all of your it's a global 500, and then you can sack this, ditch a card in
Oh,
order to salvage a knocker upper.
one of
Okay,
those cards. All
or
right.
or
It also hits
how do you
island,
want
so she can grab the Aki.
Oh,
It is one of those profiles that you don't actively want to use until you already have a comfortable card situation, though, because it is just a straight neg.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a neg, but at the same time, like once you already have your board established, profile or like once you're like at level 2, like a card like this is sometimes better than the like a regular Ditch DX salvage because you would usually want to
you don't have to
overplay it
attack with it,
anyways.
right? Yeah, you don't
Yeah,
want to attack with this sort of card.
yeah,
Okay, so now that we've gone over all the cards, let's piece together what this deck does. So at level 0, it just kind of does stuff. It doesn't actually have a true like 4K or 3/5 or a removal bomb or anything of that sort. So it just kind of sits around, tries to get a little bit of maybe it tries to get 1 or 2 brainstormers in order to get those markers ready, and then at level 1 it starts killing things, getting the level 2 randos if that is what you do, setting up a situation where your level 3s can be early played, and then you just slam them with the level 3 rando for the rest of the game. Does that sum it up?
yeah. That's basically it. Oh, sometimes you free
Right.
fresh if that comes up.
So this reminds me a lot of Symphogear pre-ban, actually. Just kind of slam, 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 right?
Yeah, did yeah, yeah. This deck is like almost essentially Symphogear and like has all of like the same strengths and like basically all of the same weaknesses as Symphogear, I would say. But it's
Sure.
arguably the strengths are arguably higher than what Symphogear did. arguably.
It has a few cards which Symphogear simply did not have. The Free Fresh early play is an enormously impactful card. I think if you resolve that, then the rest of your game probably goes super smoothly, right?
Yeah, usually, because like it's a selective search. So like
Mm.
the only drawback technically with the free fresh and like the level 2 game plan is because you swap back the two ones, the global 15 ends up mattering a lot less. Like the global 15 only really matters when you go into level 3 and you hard play the 3/2s and like you're trying to like sit on their bodies.
But she does pump herself though, which is not something she needed to do at all. Like this did not need to pump itself, right? This is
Yeah,
just 11k.
yeah,
This did not need to be an 11k,
nope, it did not.
but it is. It is an 11k, so we are in this situation. That's fine. This deck seems to have a fair bit of power at pretty minimal cost. Like, um, it's not the game plan of the deck. Like, I understand that, but I remember back when Rewrite was a deck and they had an early play, which was like a super powerful assist. That card was super powerful. Um, so in that regard, I do wonder if this level 3 assist has other things you can play into. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself because what I reckon is going to happen is if this deck is as dominant as people say it is, and it is as Symphogear-like as people say it is, then it's a pretty feel-bad deck because you're just getting slammed every turn from level 2 onwards. Feel-bad decks are the ones most likely to get punched in the face by the ban list. How do we ban this deck? And my guess is that you just,
Oh, are we done with deck overview?
uh, are we? Do you have, is there something else that, you reckon we should talk about in regards to where this deck goes or how well it's placed it is? Eight pants is nice. I think that if for example the rando had been on like standby, I think this the card would never have been printed on a standby. That just does not make sense. But if it was on something like that, I think the card would be a lot less powerful. But it's not, and instead we're on door or gate or whatever you want to call it. It's blue door, pants, but arch. It's on pants. And as a result, this is a really competent 1k1 soul deck that gets to slam climaxes probably at least half the turns of the game, if it wants to. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, for the most part. Like you're trying to play as soon as you hit level 1, you're trying to play a climax every single turn of the game for the
Every
rest of the
single
game.
turn. Yep.
Yeah,
Pretty
because like
much.
everything you're doing in this deck revolves around having a climax, and then that's why you end up playing 8 pants, and you play like an objectively worse level 1 combo compared to what the set could be playing, just so you could always have a climax to play and like always be able to do things.
I think that's actually one of the things that you want to aim with a 1k1 soul deck, to just always play a climax every turn if possible after you hit level 1. And this deck seems like it does that quite admirably, and it's never doing it for like empty value. It's always getting some amount of value, and usually a huge amount of value, huh? I was a little bit concerned about the stock cost of the level 3 finisher, but the brainstorm really alleviates that, huh?
Yeah, the brainstorm and like the 1/0 stock charger.
And the
So
1/0 that stock charges,
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
like you can keep you can technically keep looping the 1/0 even once you hit level 2 and like you start doing the rondos as well because you can change them all together with the same pants as well. So you can still stock boost in that. Like you can still stock boost that way. So the only real resource constraint for this deck usually comes down to just raw hand. So like the
And
deck,
cards, right?
yeah. So like the
Yep.
deck is like we usually one of those like double brainstorm in the back row and like you mash brains double brainstorm every turn kind of decks just so you can like have the fuel to keep constantly doing the rando.
And you do get like a not insignificant amount of memory, just just for playing the game plan. So you're slightly more likely to hit brainstorms than a lot of other decks. You do only have a 4-card brainstorm, but I mean, it's a brainstorm that can marker things. You've already got memory going. It's not like you don't have hand advantage. This
Yeah.
seems pretty solid, all things considered.
Yeah, the deck like on top of being like the Sympho Gear style like play your finishers a level 2 push damage decks, like it also plays compression really well because of memory and because of how much stock it generates at 1. Which is like how the deck can like kind of play a different game plan if you wanted to. So if you didn't want to like play the Unga Bunga Rando Go Face game plan, you can lean more into like stock charging and like maybe some more memory cards and like play hyper compression and sit on like rest counters, for example, with like the big Rondo bodies. So like the deck has more options than just like how I've built it.
Hmm. Okay. So now that we've talked about the deck and the profile, and I think we've highlighted some of the really good cards, how do you disable this deck? How do you ban a deck like this?
Oh, we're going right to the ban list. Okay, so
Well, I think if we talk about ban lists, we're also going to be talking about the particularly standout cards, right?
yeah, we can do ban list first. So yeah, like as I mentioned, like this deck is almost like universally considered like tier 1, maybe tier 0 in Japan, like undisputedly the best deck, and everyone hates it. So it's very likely that it's going to get banned if like the rep and the results keep going at the rate that they've been going for the set. So the obvious like problem cards for the deck are like the 2-1 specifically, the free fresh early play and the brainstorm, because like those are the cards that like enable your game plan and then also fix bad games for you essentially.
So if the brainstorm isn't there, then the stock crunch becomes a bit more significant.
Yeah, so if you remove the brainstorm, the stock crunch becomes more of an issue. You can't guarantee that you have your 3/2s stuck away for if like you refresh on if you refresh at level 1 and then you have a fresh deck on level 2. So like the deck becomes a little bit more inconsistent in that way. And
Mm,
another thing to note is for some reason the set only got one tap self brainstorm that's playable. Or wait, no, sorry, it only got one tap self brainstorm in the entire booster. So if you ban the brainstorm, then this deck has to either play a draw brainstorm or a tap 2 brainstorm.
that sounds like a desirable thing to happen. I think that every deck having access to a brainstorm is a bit of an eye roll. That's my personal bias. So I
Hmm.
don't think they'd ban the brainstorm for that reason. I don't think that's what Bushiroad would do. Um, Now, having never played this deck, it sounds like the way to really constrict this would be to limit the rando level 3 to like a 2 of, and then you'd want to hit a few cards. You probably put like the early play free fresh, um, and then like the level 0. Oh, so you put
So
like the level 0. You can't put the level 0 brainstorm on any restriction because that always gets picked. So it would be
yeah,
like
yeah,
the free
yeah.
fresh, the Chiuri thingo, and then uh I don't think you want to hit the 2/1 rando because that's already being hit by limiting the level 3 to 2. I don't know. Is that enough? Like limiting the rando and then getting
So
rid of the free fresh from the equation?
uh, I actually think the ban list for a deck like this and like how well it's been doing, I think it actually needs to be stricter or harsher than what you're saying. So
Okay.
the way I think the deck is should get banned, not is but should, is I think you either do a three pick one list of the brainstorm, the early play free fresh, and either like the 2-1 rondo or the 3/2 rondo. So like you either like get to like do like the bullshit rondo stuff, or you give up on like all of like the stability cards that like make the deck function, or you have to pick one of the stability cards. Or what I think the deck could also do is I think they could have put a limit on the 3/2 in some way, and then just two pick one the early play free pressure of the brainstorm. Like
Okay. In that case, that's what I was like kind of suggesting, where you neuter the level 2 rando and then you effectively ban the free fresh out
yes,
of the deck. Mm,
yes. So
okay.
like you asked if the deck had a lot of like deck speed. Like the deck actually doesn't have that much deck speed, and you don't play a combo that mills either. So hitting level 2 on your first deck and like having like awkward deck situations uh, can be a problem, which is like what the free fresh is there to like fix and answer for. Like if you hit level 2 first deck, you free fresh, it doesn't really matter. Whereas like other decks, like they'd probably be in a worse spot than what like they could be if they hit level 2 first in first deck. So if you ban the free fresh early play, like the deck loses so much stability because it has such a poor first deck. So if they have like a really rough first deck, if they don't have the early play free fresh, then the deck can kind of just fall apart, and I don't think we'll be able to play the game very well.
I think there's two thoughts that come to mind when you say that. The first one is that's very reasonable, and that it's also a very reasonable weakness for the deck to have. But this early play free fresh is not like integral to the deck structure. It's just a broken card. Like it's a super powerful standalone card that I think literally any deck in the game would be happy to have access to. Um, but it's also not something this deck absolutely needs. You could possibly play this deck without the free fresher and still be incredibly viable. Does that sound
Y-
correct to you?
Yes, yeah. 100%. So that's why I think like you have to hit the change pack, the Rondo package in some way on top of that, whether it be
Yeah.
also on the choose list or you just either hard ban or hard limit it. But
Well,
like
yeah, I think the hard limit forces you to choose, right? Because either you put the randos in memory and you're forced to always use the 2-1s as the conduit. So any sort of hard removal is now problematic for the deck. It no longer has any explosiveness. Or you just do something even more extreme, I suppose.
yeah, essentially. I don't know.
This seems like a hard deck to hit without completely crippling it, really.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I'm getting to is I think that this is going to be one of those decks. Unfortunately, that's just going to be dead as soon as the ban list hits because the set doesn't really have another like really powerful shell to like be a strong meta deck besides this one. But like
Hmm.
this one is so powerful and it's doing so well that it has to get hit really hard. uh, yeah,
Another
it's a lose lose situation.
the classic dilemma.
Yeah,
This is like one of the most expensive decks right now, right? It's like
yeah. This deck is like
around
500 Canadian dollars, maybe more. Like the brainstorms are 45 Canadian each. The 3/2 rondos are like 20 Canadian each. It's
crazy.
the Chiori is like 20 Canadian each. It's nuts.
Oh my
This is a
god.
deck. This deck is playing TD cards, and it's still this expensive.
Yes, yeah.
Good grief.
It's fucking ridiculous. And then like the Blu-ray PR is like 4K if you want to play that. The sack self the Ditch One sack self box topper PR is 25 Canadian each. It's fucking nuts.
Wait, what's the box topper?
The Ditch One
The
stack self salvage one.
Yeah, the
The
Oh.
salvage ditch. That
yeah.
doesn't have the memory issue. Wow. Okay. So we already. This is not like a. This cast wasn't a. How good is this deck? Are these people smart or not? This is a. We came into this knowing this is probably the best deck in the format, and this is how we're evaluating the game plan without having played the deck at all. And while you do have to play the deck to know a bit about the little things you want to do, like the little tricks, like things like what Ryan mentioned, like how you can opt not to immediately use the brainstorm's um stalking ability, or how much you would like if you're a very unga bunga aggro person who wants to swing in with the randos, like Ryan appears to be, or if you're a more a more civilized, calm Japanese sort who wants to sit back on tap counters and win the long game. I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody. I think that's actually just the difference between the two cultures. Um, that's something you really have to play the deck to really get a grasp on. And for people who haven't played with a 5 or less in-deck refresh, they are very finicky, but they're also really satisfying to get right. So that's another thing that I think people unironically would enjoy about the deck. Given that we have not played a game with the deck and that you've been kind of coaching us through all of this and we've just been giving kind of impressions on it, um, is there anything that we haven't picked up on? Like, is there anything like any measure or any specific meta elements that the deck has that we haven't really talked about?
No, not really actually. Like the general game plan and what makes this deck really strong is very straightforward. Rondo as a finisher is really efficient. and you can play him at level 2. And like historically, early play finishers that like can efficiently push extra damage at level 2 have always been disgustingly strong. And this deck is just doing that, but slightly better, arguably. Like it is very straightforward and why it's very strong.
I actually don't think this is like a supremely efficient finisher, but I do think that for the amount of damage it puts out,
It's a
it
supremely
is,
efficient healer.
yes, it is a great
Yeah.
healer. It is very large, so it removes opponents' boards and forces them to scramble. And its finishing, it is good enough as both a single lane over like multiple turns, or a dual lane, or even a YOLO all in at the end. It can do a lot of different things thanks to the big window of time in which you can play it. And like it's not overcosted at all. The thing is, because it only costs 1 to play with this stupid level 2 rando that I don't really understand the purpose of, um, all of the other costs are now reduced. Like, because every single character costs less, you can it is now quote unquote efficient. Even though the printed text on the level 3 is not particularly impressive to begin with. And that's what we kind of talked about earlier. You can look at the climax combos, but then you also have to look at the cards around them to see why a deck would be strong.
What's
So
worrying about all of that is the notion that the deck could just like say like the notion that the deck could just switch to a different kind of game plan level 2 is kind of scary from a like a restriction standpoint, like which is why I guess the bans probably will be pretty harsh, because
I think
I
that
don't think they want to have a situation where they like, you know,
we don't
slap
want
on
a
the
mother
wrist.
goddard.
Yeah, basically like they just want to make sure that, you know, this deck isn't completely dominating for 2 banless periods. So um
Yeah, if this deck is able to go from very strong aggressive deck into a deck that uses most of the bottom end, but then converts to a more stock chargey level 2 onwards. Are these the only memory swappers in the set? I assume not. There's probably one in every card, right?
No. There's only actually one other memory swapper that's worth note. It's also a 1/0 into a 1/1. It's yellow, and the 1/1 is a stock Adachi with on play. If you have two or more memory, you can give anything +1 level. So it's like effectively always an Adachi.
And it's oh no, it's one of those stock positive ones like what Nijigasaki has, right?
Yeah. So it's
But
a stock charging. It's like a pseudo stock charging like hard removal card that can like always hard remove anything at any point in the game.
wait, so it actually does go to stock for the change cost.
No. It's a memory swapper, right?
Thank God, man.
Yeah.
It's a memory swapper, alright, sure. It's not stock positive, it's a 1/0, but it is always an Adachi, it's always hard removal. I
Yes.
think I'll be fine having that sort of card exist, because the drawback is that you're always giving up defense, right? Um, there's a lot to think about. This deck seems incredibly powerful and incredibly hard to hit in a balanced way. I think the closest thing to hitting it in a balanced way would be to limit the rando level 3, like I mentioned, and then you implement some sort of choose list. So like maybe choose level 3 brainstorming the Chiori thingo, uh, which I think is a very hard hit. If honestly, maybe that's too much. Uh,
For what it's worth, the Chiiri is also not always a 4 of in every list. Actually,
it's still
that's
pretty
also
important, though, right?
another one that fluctuates.
mhm.
Like the only other card that's always a 4 of is the Aki Bonder. That that card like 90% of the time is a 4 of, and like there is like occasionally like two or three lists I've ever seen that play 3. So like if
Kind
you
of,
wanted to like
yeah.
consider like or like card representation as well, which is like another factor that is taken into account for ban list, like that is also one of the prime targets.
Yeah, sometimes rather than banning the outright most powerful cards, you want to ban support cards on glue instead. And that would be things like the Bonder. Mm,
I mean, the thing about the Bonder is like I mean, that I feel like banning the Bonder is just a trap, right? Because if you move to a game plan that doesn't focus on the 2-on Rondo, wouldn't you just wouldn't you be okay with not being able to run the Aki?
Ye- Yeah, but at the same time, if you don't have Aki, then your combo is a 9k healer that's just a burn 4. And at
Well,
that point, do you wanna? I think I didn't say this. The 2-1 needs one Aki and memory to memory swap. I think I missed that.
oh, I
Yeah.
Yeah,
see. Okay,
he
so
has to
they would
have at least one.
never. Okay, I see.
So if you put the Aki on a on the choose list, you're effectively banning every other card that you put on the choose
Right,
list,
right.
or you're saying you can't play Rondo.
Okay,
It's like a
which
Raku
which I
situation.
could see them doing. That
Yeah,
they've done that before.
They have
Um,
Nisekoi.
exactly, Nisekoi, yeah.
yeah.
Um, all right. So, let's cover one more topic before we close out. If you were to go, or maybe if you live in Japan, if you were to play against this deck tomorrow, how do you fight it? And the answer of playing the same deck is a valid answer, but even with that in mind, is there any specific way to fight this deck?
Oh God. Uh, I've had a few locals ask me this when I was like hyper playing the set and like fully testing it, and I could never actually come up with a good answer because everything that it does really well and like that makes it really annoying to play and like really unfun is completely uninteractable, and like there's essentially nothing that the opponent can do to like deal with it. Like you can't stop them from playing rondos. If you're ever in a bad deck state, they will just kill you as soon as they hit level 2, and there's nothing you can do about it. Uh, it creates a lot of really unfun situations. But like the only things I can really think of are like the level 0 game and the level 1 game aren't particularly the best. So like you can kind of abuse that if you have a good level 0 game or a good level 1 game. The deck doesn't have good first deck mill, so that's also something you can try to think about abusing. Like you can try to rush D side a little bit faster than you might usually do to try to abuse this, so that way they have to like Arya early play earlier than they might maybe wanted to, and that could then limit their resources to like actually get the rondos going. Uh, Other than that, it's just like managing your own deck state and making sure that you're not caught in a situation where like if they play Rondo at level 2, he'll just kill you.
My thoughts on attacking this sort of deck, this sort of indomitable, will always get things going, answer your deck every time deck, is to play one of those decks that eschews significant outplaying advantage, like a deck that gives you less agency, but is instead really aggressive and can just wipe people without them getting to play the game. Examples would be The Day I Became a God would be the first one that comes to mind. So that deck specifically just slams 2 souls every turn from like turn 3 onwards. And I think that if they flip a coin and it comes up heads, then they're just in a better position than you are, all things considered. Um, that's not healthy. When the answer to the question is play
Play
a
play a better deck, smile.
well,
That
the
that's
answer to the
awful.
question here is like play a stupid deck that doesn't care about your opponent's cards. That's not good card gaming. Like,
No, it's not.
uh,
Honestly, like D side, I don't think is like a healthy deck if it isn't obvious. I don't think it's a very fun deck, and like I've even stopped playing it at locals because so many people like don't have fun playing it and just complain. And I don't like doing that to like my local environment. Which like same thing happened with Sympho Gear. I don't think that's a good sign.
yeah, it's a deck that is both incredibly frustrating to long-time advanced players because sometimes they will just die out of nowhere, and incredibly frustrating to intermediate and beginner players because the play pattern is basically if you are not able to keep up an advantage, you will get buried, if not by cards, then by damage. It is a very overbearing deck, and it feels bad to lose to, especially if you're like think you're safe at level 2, 3, or whatever, and then you just get blitzed by this the card Last Shot wishes it was. Um,
Yeah, on it, like the worst part, honestly, is the fact that like finishers at 2 can be broken. Like as soon as you get put in those like awkward deck states, or if you even just have like an unlucky first few turns of the game, like you can just die at level 2, and that's so unfun. And I hate that. I hate that because there's no actual answer to like how do you outplay that besides like have like manage your deck states better and like don't get put in those situations.
Sometimes that's not even an option. Like you can have a deck with like some of the best deck size management in the world. You could be playing like like Danmachi, or you could be playing Fate, or a deck with good free freshing ability like Kimono Friends, and you just still get blindsided. You can't do anything about it, and that's a terrible thing to exist in Weiss. Like there is already enough random variance and nonsense for you to have really good stories to tell about your locals. You don't need that to be a consistent every week thing. Well, that's been my perspective from the beginning. I think that by having people skip level 3, you are not only making them feel bad, but you're depriving them of the ability to play their cool level 3s, which are, as Tom mentioned way back at the beginning of the episode, some of the most important and some of the most impactful cards in your deck. You just, they're just blank and they just have soul triggers because you don't get to play them. That sucks. Anyway, so we've gone on about how this is an unhealthy, terrible deck to exist, but it is a really strong deck, right? This deck is insanely strong.
It seems like it, yeah. Um,
Early play finishers are I don't think are good design in Weiss, honestly. Like anytime like a good deck has had an early play finisher, it's got put on the ban list. I don't think that's a good thing.
I was about to try and refute you with stuff like Misakuro and Haruhi before I realized that
They were
they
also put on the
literally
ban
are on
list.
the ban list. Yeah. That's
mm,
yeah. That's just the dumbest. All right. I think that that's been a very fruitful episode. We've all well, I feel like I've learned a lot because I didn't know anything about this deck. Um, Thank you again, Ryan, for coming on. Is there anyone you want to shout out or anything else you want to tell our loyal listener base?
Uh, yeah, sure. Sorry for being such a downer. It is still Weiss at the end of the day, so even if you sit against D-side at like your locals, like you haven't like lost the game on the spot. So like don't get tilted, don't get upset, don't get frustrated. All that stuff. I hope that's like perfectly clear for everybody that listens because I've had to deal with like certain. I don't want to. I'm not going to name names, but I've had to deal with like people complaining that D side's like an auto lose deck and like they never want to play if D side's in the meta and all that. Like please understand that at the end of the day, it's still just Weiss and like you should still play. You should still have fun. If you don't have fun, take a break. All that stuff. I hope that's very clear.
feels bad, man.
I think
I
so as
think
well, yeah.
last week in my locals, there was a guy I played, and he lost. He went like X2, and he said like, "Damn, guess I wasted entry fee this week again," and I felt really bad. Like that's a real. He wasn't even mad. He was just sad. You know. Uh, though that kind of feeling really sucks. If you're feeling that way about like showing up to locals and playing, then probably time for a break for sure.
Shake it off. No one's there to bully you into having a bad time. Um, and remember, everyone's there to try and have some fun at the end of the day. So just make sure you take a break when you need to. Decks like this can be incredibly unfun. But there's a lot of fun to be had. Sometimes you just wipe people with a crazy waifu rush deck, and that's also a feel bad situation. But unlike D-side, I think that's probably a healthy thing in terms of game design. I don't think it's imperative that the better player always wins. Um, it's good for skill to be represented, but I think having some fun is also really important. Tom, do you have anything you want to say before we close up? Any shout outs?
No, no, I think I'm good.
No,
Wait,
sweet.
Ryan, are you the D-side bully at your locals?
Uh, no, but my locals has like 5 D-side players,
What
including
the
me.
what?
So
You guys are a bunch of
We've got
tryhards. Holy crap.
five people who are gonna be very sad when the ban list
Wow.
day drops.
Wow.
I've already put D-side away, and I know it's like I know the set's dead and the deck's dead, and I wasted my money buying a playset, and I've accepted my fate, so I
Yeah.
don't play it anymore.
Back to the old faithful Nanoha then, I suppose.
Hell yeah.
5 D-side players? I can't even imagine. It's like that's like having oh my god, it's like
It's like having a Japanese locals in your city.
yeah. Other
Japanese
equivalents
locals are
like having
actually
like 5 Nisekoi players back when that was unbanned, or like having a bunch of Saikana. Like
bro.
what the hell? What the
Bro,
heck?
back,
You
back when
guys.
Nisekoi first dropped, we had a local spike. Lots of people started playing all of a sudden because I guess the shaft magic happened. We had a 18
Popular
man
series, yeah.
we had an 18-man tournament with 15 Nisekois.
Okay,
I came second,
I'm
by the
good,
way. I came
man.
second.
I'm good.
Uh,
Hey,
skill-based
Nisekoi
meta.
format tournament. Let's make it happen.
My win rate in Nisekoi mirrors from back then is insanely high. People were very bad at Nisekoi. Anyway, once again, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Ryan, for coming on the show at relatively short notice. And as always, if you have any thoughts, any suggestions, anything you want to say about this deck, any regrets you want to spout, given you bought D-side because you liked the mobile game and now are being unjustly punished by Bushiroad IP bias, please feel free to leave a comment, to contact us on Discord to Wine, or tweet at Ryan. I don't know what your Twitter handle is. I assume it is Wibbs.
Wibbs 8.
Wibbs8. Feel free to tweet at him with all of your grievances about this deck. I think he'll enjoy it very much. I
Hashtag
think we can.
something. I don't know what the hashtag would be.
Okay, last few thoughts. Do you have anything else to say? Any discount codes you want to shill? Anything of that sort?
Oh man.
Oh right,
Uh,
you have that.
yeah. Well, this is Japanese, so if you guys are interested in buying D-side, because the art looks nice, because mobile game sets do have really good art, make sure you guys buy it at SBTCG, the best place in North America to buy Japanese singles. You don't have to deal with like the stupid fucking Japanese shipping dilemma, or like having to like proxy buy on Japanese sites. Very convenient, very nice, great service. Also, shout outs to Strictly Broken TCG. If you want to buy English, which this set will never come to, uh, yeah. If
Thank God.
if you use code SBTCG Ryan on checkout, you get 5% off. Hooray!
Neat. And with that, we'll call it a show there. Thank you all for listening, and hopefully we'll hear you or talk to you or something next time.